All right, so welcome to We Love Teachers. This podcast is sponsored by Heady.Media Group. The why. Let's talk a little bit about that. We want to take this opportunity to celebrate the hard work and, most importantly, the heart work of our educators. Our elevator pitch would be we are going to use this platform more to learn about the one profession that touches every single person's life at some point. We want to also talk a little bit about today. I'd like to give a couple of facts. I'm kind of a nerd at heart, and so I always look at all the back to school information. You see all the pictures, and there's always an apple. And it's like, why are apples associated with teachers? Did a little bit of research, and Reader's Digest had an article written by Juliana LaBianca in 2021, and she talked about there are three main reasons why we associate the apple with the teacher. And one of those being that back in, say, 1800s, that teachers were often paid with food, animals, and often being a potato or apple. So that was important. Families often had to pay for the room and board of teachers as well. So that's one way. Another one is in 1939, Bing Crosby had a song that was a hit, and it was about an apple, and it was called An Apple for the Teacher, and that also made the tradition of giving teachers an apple very popular. And last but not least, we have the apple is always associated with the tree of knowledge, going back to the Garden of Eden. So knowledge, education, nice little segue. All right, I have with us today Eric Lyons, an educator in the house. We're going to have some conversation today, and hopefully we want to learn more about our educators in the community, what's going on, and how we can also help our educators to be more successful and feel more supported. So Eric, can you kind of tell me a little bit about yourself?
Man, I am Eric Lyons. Originally I grew up in Wynnewood, Oklahoma, so small town boy. Grew up with a pretty extensive family. Parents divorced, so that kind of extended my family in both directions. So college wasn't on the radar of many of my siblings at the time, but since then they've gone on and done different things, or just working in the workforce, have done really cool things. Brothers been in the Navy, those kinds of things. But I was inspired by my educators growing up. I lived with my dad, who worked all the time, so most of my time was spent at school. Like, that was my safe harbor. I would stay after school. I would stay there late, and stay there with my educators and just soak in whatever they were doing. They were gracious enough to just let me be there and learn and fidget and pick up instruments and draw or paint or take extra notes in history or whatever it might be. So, growing up, that was a really big influence on my life. So, after graduating high school, it was kind of inevitable that I wanted to go to college. Like, I was curious and wanted to learn more. Like, I wanted to continue learning and not just be, just going into the workforce, something like that, which could have been great options too. But just really they really invested in me, and it made me curious. So went on to college, knew that I wanted to be an educator.
Where did you go to college?
So I actually started at OU.
Okay.
So small town, was actually told by my high school counselor at that time that college really wasn't for me.
Oh, no.
Which was kind of heartbreaking, but my art teacher was like, I think you should apply anyways. So I was super stubborn, and I only applied for OU of all schools. Like, I'm going to show her I can do it. Didn't have great ACT scores or anything, but I was a pretty good student, so I was pretty high in ranking in class ranks, right, and had good GPA, stuff like that. So went ahead and applied and got accepted, and was like, all right, I'm going. But like, parents hadn't planned for college. There was no money that way. So it's kind of like all on my own. So after a year at OU, I transferred to Southwestern Oklahoma State, which was a little better for me financially, but also fit for what
Community-wise?
Yeah, community-wise, it was smaller. But I also got to really focus just on art education. Like at OU, I'd had to do art and education, so two separate sides. So to be able to do that all in one place at one time really fit my timeline better. So transferred out to SWASU and knew I wanted to be, well, I actually thought I'd be a music educator growing up. Like loved my choir teacher, loved my band director. Like that's what I did. Wasn't really into sports. So like that was where I found my place. And my senior year of high school, I took art. Actually, we got a new art teacher and I had most of my credits already done. So the principal was like, hey, this teacher is going to need a student aid. Can you be part of that class? And I was like, yeah, it's great. I had a new teacher. So put me in there and I was bored out of my mind. Like the ADHD was off the walls and there was things to do with my hands. So I just started doing the assignments with the kids or with the other students and just really like was able to like really embrace it. And it was super fun to me. It was new. And I was like, man, I get to use my hands and I get to put all these ideas that are in my head down on paper. And there's really another way to give me a voice. Wasn't as structured as music. So that was new to me. Like I was really used to that structure, but then I had all these new freedoms and I had a teacher who was like, actually at the semester joined the class. Like I was like, I'm not going to be an aide anymore. I want you to give me a grade. But I think she noticed the way I looked at things. So like, every Friday I got to stand up on the tables and walk around and she would encourage it because she's like, I just know you need to look at the world different. Like she could just see that in me. And I was like, man, this is a lot of fun. So went to college and just knew that I wanted to do art education. Like I wanted to be Miss Lawrence. Like she only influenced me for a full year, but it was like she impacted my life for like forever. Like so.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm really curious. So what is your favorite medium in art?
Oh,
you do a little
man.
bit of everything?
I do a little bit of everything. I always have a camera with me. So photography is really big in my life, but I really like doing mixed media. So really using photographs in my actual art. So whether that be through assemblage or throwing wax or ink or paint or whatever that might be, just working towards that, the art pieces that way.
So do you happen to have a studio?
I do not have a studio.
Okay.
I used to actually have a studio here in Guthrie for a while, and then my wife and I adopted our oldest son and then had our youngest son pretty like 2 months apart. Funny how that all works out, but it really just was like, it's basically like having twins, and I couldn't make it to Guthrie quite as much as I wanted to, so I let that go. And just, working in my classroom is my studio. Like, as the kids are working, I'm working. It's kind of nice, a cool way to, like, kids who don't ask questions, they're watching me and learning from me, not just from, like, I don't just sit there and, like, expect, like, oh, okay, like, you guys are doing this stuff, but I'm there doing it with them so they can kind of see that direction.
So besides art, though, what other hobbies do you have?
I am actually the head track coach. So
wow.
I know that I don't really fit the track coach mode. I didn't even like run track in high school. It's just something that I picked up as a teacher. There was a need for coaches, and I was young and just got married and had no kids, and was like, I can do this. And then just fell in love with making relationships with students outside of the classroom, because then they wanted to be a part of my classroom. So track keeps me pretty busy. Obviously photography, but being with my family is really important. Like the kids are always with us, and it's not like we could get babysitters, or we don't have a lot of family in Oklahoma City, so we don't just pawn them off somewhere for a little bit. It's just like, these are our kids. They're a part of us. They're going to be part of this community. So we really involve them in a whole lot. So spending that time with family is really important to us.
That's great. So I was wondering, like, do you have a spare room in the house that's your art studio now?
So we just moved houses. Okay. So that's kind of in limbo of seeing which rooms belong to who. So
Gotcha.
we have kind of an office area, but I have a dream of building a studio in the backyard. So we've got enough space to do that now. So hopefully that will come soon. But my studio literally, it drives my wife bananas, I'm sure, but it's strung out all over the living room. I just work there, and she knows it, and she puts a sheet down for me so I don't get paint everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit more. You talked about Miss Lawrence. Is that what you said her name was? But what else made you want to become an educator?
I've always enjoyed being around other kids. Like when even, middle school, I would do things with elementary kids. In high school, we had a reading program where we went to the elementary school and worked with different students. And like, that was a lot of fun to me. Like to go and like this kid who's just wanting to read to somebody, but really it was like, we were able to be role models to them too, and not just reading books. And that really became relevant to me. Like, this is really important. Like, sitting in this role right now is really important because these kids might not have someone to read with at home. They might be struggling in a full classroom setting, and we can go do this one-on-one, and I can lift them up. I can praise them. I can really like encourage them in what they're doing. And, like, the struggle of reading, you'd see that slip away, and they would just become comfortable and want to do it more, and walk in a building and they run up to you and give you a hug, and it's like, man, this is much bigger than just reading. Like this is
So true.
yeah, it's way bigger than that. So like really like starting to learn those relationships, and then also just like I said earlier, like the way my teachers poured into me, like I'm still really good friends with a whole lot of them. And I know social media makes that a lot easier, but my history teacher, Kevin Lynch, he teaches at East Central now, but it's not uncommon for us to text weekly, and just talk about education or politics or what's going good, or like his dream was to actually become a teacher because he wanted to coach track, and he never coached track. And now my dream was to become an educator, and I'm coaching track. Like that just like came to a part of it. But like this week alone, just bouncing off, like he was telling me how he and his friends based their whole track knowledge based off of like Abilene High School in Texas.
Yes.
And like he's sharing that with me still. Like he's still showing me like, hey, watch these videos, watch these people, watch their exchanges, pour into these kids. Like he's still just like this huge cheerleader that is always on our side. Like, and you see him encouraging, and not just me, but he still encourages all the people that I went to high school with, and I see it on social media, and it's just really cool that 22 years later, he's still pouring into his students that he had.
That's so true. So tell me a little bit about, as an educator, what brings you the most joy? Is it seeing their shiny faces the first day of school? Like what just like almost
Oh man, the
moves
first
you?
day of school, I'm a nervous wreck.
Oh, you are?
First day of school's tomorrow. I'm not going to sleep all night.
Okay.
I already know it. This is my 18th year, and I still haven't slept the night before school starts. Honestly, it used to be like that aha moment, but now it's like, it's those relationships that I've built with my students. When someone 10 years later is like, hey, I got a film camera. Can you help me develop my film? Or I'm getting married. Can you photograph my wedding? Or
wow.
I just had my first child. Can you come and photograph my child? Or I'm getting married. Can you be in my wedding with me? That's like super special to me to know that these relationships can grow. And I know that's something I learned from the teachers that I had that also nurtured that same safe space. But knowing kids are safe, like kid just started art school for the first day today. And she texted me and was like, you told me for 2 years that design class, like I can't wait to get in design class. And today she texted and she said, I've started my first 2D design class, and you're right. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So, it's like these kids keep coming back. And I think that's super important. I know we live in an age where people are afraid to embrace the relationship side of students, just because they're afraid maybe they'll show up on social media, or maybe they'll get in trouble for crossing boundaries. Like be very wise in the boundaries you set for your students in your classroom, and you can still foster a relationship that is going to pay off dividends years from now. Like, it's kind of hard. Like, our students today are sometimes, they're great students, but their attention spans are much smaller. So sometimes we don't think that they're really taking in or understanding what's happening. And then you get a text and it's like, man, 2D design class is the best. Or, hey, remember that time you just told me to like be a good human? And that's just paying off now because I just got this new job and it was from a connection that I made from just being nice to someone. And so like those were the value of a relationship to me in a classroom goes well beyond what I'm actually teaching in the classroom.
Well, I can, this is bringing me a lot of joy. I can kind of see the passion in your eyes as you talk about that and how much being an educator means to you. Tell me a little bit about maybe that one moment in the classroom where I think we've all had them as educators, coaches, that you're just like, I'm not going to cry in front of y'all today. I'm really not. You're not going to do that. Yeah. So do you have one of those moments to share?
Oh, man, I have so many moments.
I have to ask you that because I can see in your eyes right now.
Yeah,
just talking,
man, it's just like going through like
care.
So many people, so many different. I'm just going to, I had one student this year that I wanted to ask her, like I asked her all year long to do track. I just wanted her to give it a try, and she was not having it, not at all. And she took so we have what's called an Explore Week at school, and it's the week before spring break where kids, they go outside of their normal class and just do something different. And she wasn't in an art class or anything, but I did custom kicks. So we made custom shoes. That's what we did for the full week.
I want to take your class.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. And I just sat down in front of her and I was like, hey, like, I think you should do track. I think you'd be really good at it. And she's like, nah, I don't know. And I was like, hey, can you just stop being scared? And she looked at me like it took her aback a little bit. She's like, how did you know I was scared? I was like, well, because it's something new. I know that would make me nervous too if someone's wanting me to do something that I've never done before. And then so she came to do high jump for me, like not even easy. Like we went like full in. She came to do high jump for me, and she started out in her first meet. She jumped like 4'6", so that's not really high in jumping world. And then we went to the next meet, and she jumped 4'10", and then she started looking at it. I was like, hey, like you can do this. Like you can get better at this. So the next week she jumped 5 foot, and then she started setting goals. She said, I really want to jump 5'2". So we went to the next meet and she jumped 5'2". She's like, now my goal is I want to make state. And I was like, okay. So she qualified for state, and I'm not going to get emotional either, I promise. Okay, I might. But we show up at the state track meet, and she's so nervous. And she actually probably jumped her worst at state, and that's okay. Like, we embrace failures too. Like, that's a huge thing that I talk about, that it's okay to fail at things because that's going to motivate you, make you grow, all those different things. But I remember just like, so we're getting her mark on the track, and I put her tape down because you could only use a piece of tape. And I just wrote thank you on there. And she looked down and read it and just gave me this huge hug, and like was so excited because someone believed in her, like in what she was doing. And you know, it didn't turn out how we wanted, and she was bummed, and we hugged again and we cried a little bit. And then she showed up at school this year, like 2 days ago. I saw her at school for like, she's picking up her schedule or whatever it was, and she was like, I'm ready for this. Like, we're going to go win state this year. So she's got this whole, she wants to do it in she's like, I want to high jump in college. So she's got a whole new goal from from making shoes to now she wants to do this in college. So she's setting goals. And, there's a jillion students that I could talk about who's set these goals and have done this kind of thing. But, just watching her embrace this ability that she didn't know she had, but like really like encouraging her, not forcing her to do it, just asking her, and then just being like, hey, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to fail. It's okay to have these successes. And, it's really cool. Like, that's completely outside of my realm of being a teacher in the classroom, because that's really my jam. That's what I do. Like, right. I love doing that. And I get to do track, which is fun. But, just like teaching them, like, hopefully she's going to take that lesson and apply it to so many more things away from the track. Like, yes, you have an ability. You can go do these great things. Where can we apply that in life too?
Well, I tell you what, when you watch her jump in college for the first time, mm-hmm. you're gonna need a tissue. I can tell.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's gonna be so good. Yeah, she's just fun, and she's always smiling, always cheerful. She's good for the team. Like, she just brings everybody up around her. She's encouraging her friends to come do it now, who probably would have never given track a chance. But, she's excited, and she's like, we can do this. Like, we can win as a team. We can win she doesn't see it as an individual sport. Right. And, in track, sometimes we do. It's really easy to be yourself as an athlete. She just sees the big picture, and she's ready to, like, take on that challenge. It's pretty cool.
I tell you, with her mindset, it's going to be so important about the sky will be the limit on what she can do, especially if she goes, competes well, mm-hmm. puts all those, learn how to compete with all that, I guess, all those words in your head and all that other stuff. That'll be awesome. So tell me, what is the most difficult thing about being an educator?
Oh,
and we all know in Oklahoma, we know the pay is horrible and all that. It's getting better, but right. what is the most difficult? Is it classroom management? What would you say?
Man, I might be rare. I try not to ever really like dwell on the negative at school. Like, that's just a mindset that I've always had. There's a lot of things that could be negative. Obviously, I'm not teaching because of the paycheck. Like, we could complain about that, but be smart about my financial situations. I don't have to have all the things that I think I need in the world. And, and I know that's different for different people. And sometimes that's a big part of having a job, is someone wants to feel appreciated, and they feel it through either compensation or whatever it might be. Maybe my biggest challenge, I think, at the high school level, I think sometimes we find ourselves just teaching our classes, and we don't find our way outside of that. And I wish that was, sometimes I wish that was a little different. Like at middle school or elementary school, usually they do like teams, and they work together as a team. And not saying I don't work with my colleagues as a team, but like, it's compartmentalized that way. So you kind of have different goal setting that way. But at the high school level, I feel like sometimes we keep to ourselves. And I did that for a really long time. Just, this is what I did in my classroom, and I'm going to keep it here because this is successful. Right. And then 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, man, this is like super bogus. Like, I'm not being a good educator right now. I've got to focus on being a teacher of the school and not just a teacher of my classroom. So like encouraging kids to take other people's courses, just so I want their toolbox to be full. Like, I can teach you this, but someone else is really good at what they do. So like, you need that too, so that you can have all of these things to make you a well-rounded student instead of just a one-track student. And like, I know kids get comfortable and they want to stay with just one teacher, but like, just that cohesiveness across the schools. And my new school, like, I switched schools 2 years ago, and they are really good at that. Like, people working together, like the whole fine arts team working together, whether that's helping with visuals for drama performances, or helping pick out music for the dance class, or the things like, I'm a big music person. So I was like, hey, what if we worked together and we did something like that? So yeah, just really like branching myself out as an educator to be a teacher of the school. Like, I want to say that I teach at Heritage Hall. I don't want to say I teach art. Like, I really want to
Gotcha.
embrace the whole school.
So, like, are you used to that feeling of when you go out in the community and you're at Walmart or you're at other stores and you hear some of your students yell your name? Like, are you used to that feeling like a rock star every place where people are so happy to see Mr. Lyons?
Yeah, maybe not rock star stage,
Okay.
but I remember being like a new teacher and I would see a student in public and I was like, whoop, gotta go hide from him, like
Yeah.
go the other direction. And I was like, now it's, hey, there's Mr. Lyons. And I've had so many students over the last 18 years. I taught at PC West and Deer Creek, so these are really big schools. So lots and lots of students. Of course, not every single one comes through my room, but I'll be in public and they're like, Mr. Lyons, and I'm like, hey man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know their names, I don't know anything. So, but really embracing that and still giving them that moment, like, man, like, you went out of your way to come
Right.
talk to me, so I'm really going to embrace that moment now. I know I'm easier to find with the hair and mustache, so I kind of stand out in a crowd. But yeah, it's always really cool when students go out of their way or come back to school. Like, usually I'm like, guys, don't come back to school, just go, and like, you have everything you need. But they're like, man, I had to come back at lunch and bring you Whataburger because I know you love Whataburger.
Oh.
Like, so, or little things like they just show up
That's
and
really sweet.
yeah, just celebrating those things. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you understand what it's like. Like, sometimes you do feel like a rock star and you don't realize you're
Yeah.
being that person. But yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I've always wondered what it's like to teach elementary because I watch my boys walk into the school and just like in awe of every single person that they see. Just like
Yeah.
they want to be in PE class. Like, my youngest son, I was like, hey, there's a new person doing aftercare this year. I was like, it's Miss Bramble. And he's like, oh, man, I can't wait to see her.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, this is so great. So yeah, the rock star moment's a little weird because I don't so much enjoy being the center of attention. I really just behind the scenes, like doing my thing, whatever, instead of being kind of the limelight. But I mean, if a kid comes out of his way, though, like, I'm going to embrace that moment for them. They obviously have came and said my name for a reason. They didn't try to hide from me. So
That's exactly right. Are you surprised that a lot of those students are ones that aren't in your class?
yeah.
Does that surprise you?
I mean, maybe the coaching side of it, like, you're a little more visible when you're coaching.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
they see you out on the track, or, you know, even if they're playing football, they see you out there doing, or playing soccer, they see you out there with the track kids. Or, you know, but sometimes, like, all of them call me coach.
Yeah.
Like,
That's going to stick with you for a long
oh yeah,
time.
that's just gonna stick forever. Like, Coach Lyons, and I'm like, but they want us to be there, and I'm hoping like that's where teachers like can get out of their comfort zone and like really embrace that moment, like being visible at a football game, like.
Right.
Like, you might not know nothing. Like, you might not know nothing. Sorry, that's terrible
okay.
grammar. You might not know anything
Yeah.
about football, but just showing up and being like,
Supporting.
and supporting and learning what they're doing and being like, man, that was a good sack. And they're like, yeah. Like, man, I had to
He saw
Google what
me.
that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do know more about football than that. But just, you know, just if other educators are listening right now, like, embrace all the students. Like, embrace what they do. Go to their performances. Go to a volleyball game. I know nothing about soccer. I don't know anything about soccer. I'm trying to figure out, like, why that kid's faster than everyone, but he gets called off sides. Like,
Yeah.
why is that a penalty? Can you come run on my track team because you're super fast? But yeah, just embracing the whole student and like being a part of their lives, because it pays off. Like, in the end, they come looking for you and seeking you, and even if you didn't know that you were making an impact on them.
So the other thing I want to ask as we start closing up is just tell me, as members of the local community, What can we do to best show our support to teachers? What does that look like?
Man, just kind of the same of what I'm saying. Like, go be involved with them,
Okay.
even if they're not your grandkids. Even if they, like, Guthrie does a really good job of this. Like, I know they had like meet the athlete night the other night, and one of my former athletes is the new head cross country coach here, and he was posting pictures, and like the stands were full, and he like people were praising him like just out of nowhere. But I know by people supporting him, that's gonna like boost his confidence, and
Right.
he's gonna embrace this town. Like, he's gonna embrace the whole community, not just his cross country team, because they go and believe in him. Like, I went down and got coffee, and the owner there was just like, "Yeah, we got this new cross country coach," and I was like, "Oh yeah, Bryce. He's one of my former athletes." And he's like, "Man, is he like?" I was Googling him. He's got like 21 state titles, and I was like, "Yeah, he did this, and he did this, and he did this," and he's like, "So like he's pretty good," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he loves your community, and he is going to change the face of things. And I know Guthrie went through a hard time this summer, and they lost their head cross country coach. He passed away, and that's a huge break to this.
Loss,
That's
yeah.
a huge loss to this community, and Bryce is going to embrace that, and they've already embraced him. And seeing people embrace one another, I know Heady's helping us out here today, but watching Heady post pictures, like he showed up at school and had a dozen donuts and a red balloon. Like, he invested in
Right.
that teacher. And when we see those investments in us, like, that keeps us going. Like, that's a really driving force, because we're going to hear all the negative. We're going to have kids who have bad days. We're going to have parents who have bad days. We're going to have emails that could probably hurt our feelings or something, but then we get a red balloon and some donuts and
Some sugar.
And gifts are always nice. We always like those.
Thank you for being honest.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
yeah. But I mean, and where those students are humans and are going to have bad days, they're going to have super great days. And where those parents are humans and have bad days, they're going to have super great days. And they're going to, like, having them on your team is so important. Like, whereas the teachers are investing into these kids, like the community, we want to fill that back. Like, I was really fortunate at PC West. Even my parents there were very supportive of their kids, and we got to see those kids be successful. And at Deer Creek, the parents were very supportive of their kids, and we got to see them be super successful. The parents at Heritage Hall they believe in their kids, and their kids are very successful. The community believes in them. You go to Deer Creek football game, and the whole stands are completely full. Like, there's way more people there than there are team players on the field. So the community is still showing up to see that, and supporting your community in their performances. Like, show up and go to their drama performances. Like, there's not a reason why every seat in the drama performance shouldn't be full. Like,
Great point.
yeah, it's going to drive the kids thrive when they know when they are seen.
Right.
They live in a world where they want to be seen. They
very
put
true.
things on social media so they can be seen. We got to be there so they can be seen. And then, honestly, like, being on social media is really cool, but when the social is really there and the people are really there, it's so much better. It's so much more meaningful. And I think our students are starting to learn that too. They're starting to understand that the crutch of the screen in front of them is starting to affect them. I think they're starting to hear it from us enough that they're getting rid of that, and they long for those physical personal touches there. And COVID was terrible. We can talk about that 1,000 times, but kids are now starting to learn what it's like to have people in their lives again. And it
And you
still
know the
looks different.
difference.
Yeah, it's totally different, and they need it more now than they ever did. Like we're training them to be humans again. Like
Yeah.
we didn't realize how big that effect was on their psyche on that side of it. But I think it became apparent, especially to educators. Like we really saw it. I know you saw it, and we're starting. I think teachers are like, oh man, like when it's time, when it's on, like I'm on 100%. Like it's job time. Like I'm gonna pour everything that I got into it.
Well, I also want to know, as we get ready to wrap up, I hate to have missed something or question. Is there something like you're just dying to add for people out there that maybe we don't understand about educators, or I guess about, I thought it was interesting when we were talking, and I know for being an educator myself, you talked about your nerves before the first day of class, getting ready for that. And I'm not sure that our listeners really realize how passionate you are, that you want to get it right, that you're excited about those relationships, and it's still a little different. Do you feel like you're more nervous after COVID coming back, like for the in-person part? Not necessarily about catching COVID, but about just because we had to drop and do everything with lessons online.
Right.
Now it's in person. How do I make this fun again? Do you feel the pressure with that type of thing?
A little bit. It was terrible when COVID hit. Like, I'm usually a pretty upbeat person, and like depression, like I didn't ever really realize what that was. But when I didn't have my people, like that was really, really hard. Like not having my students, not having my colleagues, that was so hard. Made the transition to my new school, and thankfully, we have not missed a day of in-person instruction for the 2 years that I've been there. So I know that's a little different. Some people did 4-day weeks, some did 3-day weeks or alternating days or something like that. Our school did a really good job of implementing a plan, and we wore masks, and it wasn't comfortable, and it was hard, and we did it, and kids didn't even know I had a mustache. Like it was crazy. Last year we tried it without masks and it didn't work, so we went back to masks, and that was okay, and then got to where we didn't have to do masks anymore. And this year we're starting with no masks, and it was definitely different, but I don't think I stopped doing what I do. Like I could have used it as a crutch and like taken it a little easy, but I still had rigor in my classroom, which I think a lot of people sometimes think we don't. We do. Like we have a lot. I always tell my students, like, you're always going to get you're going to get what you put into class.
Right.
Like you want to be a better painter, you're going to have to work every single day. You want to get the credit, you're probably still going to work every single day. That's totally fine. But I'm going to teach appreciations, different things like that. It didn't COVID didn't really scare me off from teaching. Like I was just ready. I mean, that's what I do. Like I just needed it back. So I was excited to be back in the classroom. I would just say, like, if anyone, man, I, as an educator, want to tell people, like, you don't have to make the perfect grade. That doesn't make you a better student. You don't have to make A's. That doesn't make you a better student. I was taught by a lady. I was teaching at a summer camp, and one of the coordinators overheard me say something, and I really was focused on like this product that we had to have, which is what educators do. We have a product.
Right.
Like we have an end goal. We set goals. We want to accomplish those goals. And she came to me. She's like, "Man, like, I heard you talking to this kid. Like, she's like, nothing bad, but I heard you tell him that you weren't doing something correct." And she's like, "I really want you to like." She's like, "You're doing an awesome job." She's like, "But I really want you to really embrace, like, even if it's not right the way I see it, that it is right the way they see it." And I was like, man, that's real heavy.
It is.
That's really good. And that very day, I changed my entire teaching, and I really started embracing failures and letting kids know that it's okay to fail. Not getting an F or a D or a C or whatever that is, but that might not have turned out exactly how I wanted, and you can't quit on it.
Yeah.
We're gonna grow on it. Okay, so you wanted to paint a flower, and it looks really flat. So now you've turned this in, but let me talk to you about how we're gonna add to it. I'm not telling you did a bad job because this is good. Let me show you how we can, in your eyes, the way they say, well, I didn't do very well. Okay, well, how can we make it better?
Right.
Let's really focus on it that way. So embracing failure is okay. And I'll tell every single student that, like, we're going to do a lot of cool things in class and we're going to fail at a whole lot of them. And that's okay. Like, maybe yours looks different than mine, or yours looks different than the person next to you, and that's okay because we're all different people. But we have to fail to learn. Like, when we were inventing the light bulb, how many times did we fail at that before we got it right? Like, no one, and our generations now really think they can do it immediately. I like to call them Google kids. They think, well, I didn't turn out the first time. I'm like, yeah, you got to work at this. Like, somebody told me the other day, I said I was going to use this analogy on the first day of school. I'm going to use it right now. They said, you can stand on a mountain in California and someone can be cooking bacon in New York, but you can't smell it. And I was like, oh, you got to get there before you can smell it. Okay. So I was just really thinking about that analogy. As like using that in class. Like, we're starting right here, but we're going to have to work all the way across to get to our goal. And if that's one assignment that takes us 6 weeks, whatever it might be, like getting to that point, like that's the important part, like understanding that rigor. Like, I know that majority of my students aren't going to go on to art school, and that's okay. But I'm giving them tools to learn on a lot of things. We're using problem solving. We're thinking outside the box. We're thinking forward. We're taking steps back. So we're moving back again. It's a constant process of going through there. So, yeah, if anyone's listening, I don't know how many people are going to listen to this, but whoever is listening, it's okay to fail. It's absolutely okay to fail.
All right. So that would kind of summarize this up as you start the school year, just being ready for students to be just a part of the process and embrace failure as a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Well, anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I appreciate it. So you are a very first episode of We Love Teachers, and we wish you the best tomorrow. I hope you get more sleep than you're anticipating before you start school tomorrow. But thank you so much for coming and being a part of our interview today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.